My name is Thomas Reynolds. I'm a 54-year-old architect living in Charlotte, North Carolina. I've spent the past 3 decades designing homes for other families, but everything I have ever built pales in comparison to what I tried to build for my own, especially for my daughter Allison. From the day she was born, Allison was the center of my world. Her mother Deborah and I weren't perfect, no marriage is. But we loved our daughter deeply, and that love often kept us going when other things tried to pull us apart. After our divorce, I remained in Allison's life as a constant. School drop-offs, dance recitals, college movie-in day, I was always there. I wasn't just her father. I was her safe place, at least I thought I was. Allison was a smart-driven girl who always knew what she wanted. She graduated from college with honors and soon after met a man named Jeremy. I didn't know much about him at first. He seemed quiet, respectful, the kind of man who listens more than he speaks. She told me they met through mutual friends at a networking event in DC, and before I knew it, they were living together. When she called to say they were engaged, I was thrilled. Of course, I offered to pay for the wedding, no hesitation. I told her, every father dreams of walking his daughter down the aisle. Let me give you that day. What I didn't know, what I couldn't have imagined, was how much that day would cost me. Not just financially, but emotionally, spiritually, and in a way that would leave a scar I never saw coming. Looking back, there were signs. But when you love someone that deeply, you don't look for warning lights. You look for reasons to trust. You convince yourself that no matter what happens, family will always be family. That belief, that hope, would soon be tested in a way no father should ever have to experience. From the moment Allison got engaged, she and I were constantly on the phone, swapping ideas, brainstorming venues, colors, menus, florists, you name it. She wanted a timeless ceremony with modern touches. I wanted her to have the kind of day little girls dream about. No expense was spared. We booked a vineyard just outside Asheville, elegant, surrounded by rolling hills and oak trees. It was the kind of place you'd see in a movie. Allison cried when she saw it in person. I remember she hugged me tight and whispered, "You always make the impossible feel easy, Dad." That moment alone made every dollar worth it. I handled almost everything: the venue deposit, catering contracts, custom invitations, the event coordinator. She wanted a string quartet for the ceremony and a live jazz band for the reception. I booked both. When she mentioned wanting designer dresses for her bridesmaids, I said done. I even surprised her by flying in a baker from New York for the cake tasting. It was her dream, and I had the means to make it real. Why wouldn't I? Deborah, her mother, helped with smaller things: seating charts, flower arrangements. We coordinated well enough, though we'd been divorced for years. At that point, we were allies for Allison's happiness. Even Jeremy seemed grateful. Though quiet, he often thanked me for my support. I assumed he came from a more modest background, and I never wanted him to feel out of place. So I included him in decisions, asked his opinion on the wine selection, even offered to cover part of their honeymoon. There was never any indication, not even a hint, that I was an outsider to this process. Quite the opposite. I felt like the architect, not only of the wedding, but of a memory that would last a lifetime. One afternoon, Allison and I were sitting in a local cafe after a dress fitting. She looked tired but happy, sipping iced tea, scrolling through Pinterest. "Dad," she said, not looking up, "thank you. You're giving me everything I ever wanted." I smiled, told her that's what dads do. And I believed that deeply. I wasn't doing this out of obligation or image. I was doing it because I loved her, because I wanted her to begin her marriage knowing she was surrounded by unwavering support. If only I had known what would follow. As the wedding drew closer, something in the air began to shift. Allison became less available. Calls went unanswered. Texts were shorter, more rushed. At first, I chalked it up to stress. Weddings are chaotic after all. I gave her space, assuming she was busy with last-minute decisions. But when an entire week passed without a word, I began to worry. I reached out again, need help with anything, no reply. It wasn't like her. We'd been in constant contact for months. Then I tried Deborah. She answered curtly, "Everything's under control. Allison's just overwhelmed." I tried to believe her. A few days later, I received an email from the event coordinator with an updated guest list. I almost didn't open it, but when I did, something jumped out at me instantly. My name wasn't on it. Neither was my sister's or my parents'. At first, I thought it was a mistake, some clerical error. I called the coordinator immediately. She hesitated when I asked. I was told not to include you," she said awkwardly. All decisions were approved by the bride and groom. I was stunned. It didn't make sense. I was funding the entire wedding. I had been part of every conversation, every contract, every logistical detail. And now without warning, I was being erased from it. I drove to Allison's condo that night. It was late, but I didn't care. I needed answers. She answered the door looking surprised to see me but not guilty. That confused me even more. "Dad, what are you doing here?" she asked, voice low. "I got the guest list," I said. "Why aren't we on it?" She looked away, then back again with a rehearsed calmness. "Jeremy and I decided to keep it intimate. We want the ceremony to reflect our future, not our past." "Our past," I repeated. "Allison, I paid for this wedding. I've been by your side through everything. What are you talking about?" She avoided my eyes. Then she said it. "I just think it would be easier if you weren't there." I don't remember what I said after that. The room spun. My heartbeat pounded in my ears. I left without another word. Outside, I sat in my car for nearly an hour trying to process what had just happened. It felt like I'd been cut out of my own daughter's life. Not because I failed her, but because she had rewritten the story without me in it. I drove home in silence. My phone buzzed with texts from friends asking about the wedding. I didn't reply, because for the first time in my life, I had no idea how to answer. The next day, I returned to Allison's condo not to fight but to understand. I wasn't angry, not yet. I was confused, wounded, desperate for something that made sense. I brought along a box of old photo albums, the kind we used to flip through every Father's Day. I thought maybe, just maybe, if I reminded her of who we were, she'd remember. She opened the door hesitantly. "I don't want to argue," she said before I could speak. "I'm not here to argue," I replied, "just talk." I stepped inside. It looked the same as I remembered, but it didn't feel like her place anymore. The walls were bare. The warmth she used to bring into every space was gone, as if she'd moved on even from herself. I set the box on the coffee table. "Do you remember these?" I asked. She glanced at them, lips pressed tight. "Of course I do." I opened one album and pointed to a photo Allison in a tiara at her 6th birthday party, frosting on her nose, sitting in my lap. I smiled. She didn't. "Dad, this isn't going to change anything," she said. I looked at her for a long moment. "Help me understand then. Why am I not invited to your wedding? What did I do that was so unforgivable?" She didn't answer right away. Then she said almost too softly, "It's not about what you did, it's about who I am now." What does that mean? I don't want to be defined by the past anymore. I've changed. Jeremy helped me see things differently. It hit me then, not like a slap, but like a slow knife. She wasn't just rewriting the wedding. She was rewriting herself, and in this new version, I didn't exist. "But I was never the one who held you back, Allison," I said. "I supported every dream you had. I showed up." She finally looked at me, and for a second I saw something flicker, regret, guilt. I couldn't tell, but it was gone just as fast. "I appreciate everything you did, really, but this is what I want now. And cutting me out of your life? That's part of what you want." She didn't answer. I stood up slowly. "I won't fight you, but I won't pretend this doesn't hurt." As I walked out, I heard her call my name. I stopped, but I didn't turn around. "Dad, I'm sorry." That was all. No explanation, no repair, just a daughter I no longer recognized offering a whisper that couldn't fill the distance between us. When I got home that evening, I didn't go inside right away. I sat in the car parked in the driveway, headlights off, engine running. The silence around me felt thicker than usual, like the world was muffling itself so I could hear the echo of everything I just lost. Inside, my wife Carol was waiting. She'd always had a quiet wisdom about her, the kind that didn't need many words to say something that mattered. When I finally walked in, she looked up from her book, saw my face, and simply asked, "She said no, didn't she?" I nodded. I told her everything, every sentence, every look, every pause that felt like a brick laid between us. Carol didn't cry, neither did I. There was a numbness that ran deeper than tears. We sat in silence on the couch, her hand in mine, while the house buzzed faintly with the hum of a refrigerator and the tick of a clock that suddenly felt cruel. "This isn't just a wedding anymore," I finally said. "It's like she buried us alive." Carol closed her eyes, breathed in slowly, then said, "It's like grieving a child who's still alive." And that was it. That was the truth neither of us had dared say aloud until now. Allison wasn't gone. She was still somewhere out there, probably smiling, planning centerpieces, practicing vows. But the version of her we had known, the daughter who called when her car broke down, who cried in my arms after her first breakup, who asked us to help her move 3 times in 1 year, that daughter had disappeared. Carol tried to distract us for the next few days. We cleaned out the garage. She baked cinnamon rolls. We watched old episodes of Cheers. But everything felt like it was missing a piece. The worst part was that I still wanted to give her the wedding. Even after what she'd said, even after what she'd done. Because love doesn't die clean. It lingers like smoke in your clothes after the fire's long gone. But something inside me, something deeper than anger, was starting to stir. A quiet voice I hadn't heard in years. It was the voice that said maybe being a good father doesn't always mean saying yes. Maybe sometimes it means walking away. It was early Sunday morning when I made the decision. I was standing in the kitchen pouring coffee when Carol walked in, still in her robe. I must have had a look on my face because she didn't say anything right away, just waited. I turned to her and said with more calm than I expected, "I'm canceling everything." She didn't look surprised. She didn't even ask why. "You're sure?" she said. "I've never been more sure of anything." I walked to my office and opened the wedding folder, the one filled with invoices, contracts, vendor contacts, and receipts. I had built this wedding from the ground up. I knew which strings to pull. I started with the venue. The woman on the phone was stunned. "Mr. Reynolds, you've already paid in full." "I know," I said. "That doesn't change anything." Next was the caterer. Then the musicians, then the transportation, the florist, the photographer. One by one, I called them all. Some of them tried to convince me otherwise, some asked if they should speak with Allison directly. No, I told them this was my contribution, and I'm withdrawing it. Carol sat beside me the entire time, not saying much, just being there. Her presence was enough. I didn't need to be talked down or comforted. I needed to act. By late afternoon, everything had been unraveled. Tens of thousands of dollars, months of planning gone in a matter of hours. The jazz band even thanked me for giving them the day off. I called Allison last. She didn't answer. I left a voicemail, calm, measured, cold maybe, but not cruel. Allison, I need you to know this isn't out of revenge. It's out of self-respect. I was willing to do everything for you, even when you made it clear you didn't want me there. But I won't fund an event I've been erased from. I love you, but I won't support something that treats me like I'm disposable. I hung up before I could say more, because what else was there? The next few days were quiet, too quiet. No phone calls, no doorbell, nothing. Part of me expected her to show up in tears to say it was all a mistake, that Jeremy had twisted her view, that she'd let a moment of immaturity destroy something sacred. But that moment never came. Instead, I sat in the living room staring at a now pointless wedding invitation on the coffee table, her name written in gold script beside a man who barely spoke 10 words to me. And for the first time in this whole ordeal, I didn't feel like the villain. I felt like a man who had finally drawn a line and stood on the right side of it. The wedding day arrived, sunny skies, warm breeze, everything Allison had hoped for. But there was no vineyard, no white chairs lining the lawn, no jazz band warming up in the shade. There was only a small rented event hall in the outskirts of town, hastily decorated, dimly lit, and missing over half the original guest list. Carol and I didn't attend, obviously, but word travels fast in families, and my sister Jane, who had also been uninvited, heard from a friend who lived nearby that Allison had gone through with the ceremony anyway. No photographer, no elaborate floral arrangements. Just a few confused guests, Jeremy's buddies from college, and a local officiant who looked like he had been booked the night before. I didn't know whether to feel relief or sadness, maybe both. Around noon, I received a text. From Ben, my nephew and Allison's cousin. He had remained neutral through everything, too kind to pick sides. Hey, Uncle Tom, just wanted you to know I came to the wedding, and I left. I stared at the screen. He sent another text a moment later. I couldn't watch her pretend everything was okay. Then came a photo. It was Allison standing in front of a makeshift altar. Her dress still looked beautiful, but the joy that had once danced in her eyes was absent. Her smile was thin, forced like it had been pasted on. Behind her stood Jeremy, stiff and awkward, his hands clasped like he wasn't sure where to put them. There was no father of the bride, no emotional walk down the aisle, just a ceremony trying to prop itself up on what little was left of a dream. Later that evening, my sister called. She cried halfway through the vows Jane said, had to stop and breathe. People were whispering, asking what happened. Someone even asked where you were. I didn't say anything. She looked like a little girl again, Jane added, scared, lost. The image hit me hard. Not because I wanted her to hurt, but because I knew the pain of standing at a pivotal moment in life and realizing you've pushed away the only people who truly cared. That night, Carol and I ate dinner in silence. No celebration, no sorrow, just a quiet knowing. We weren't at the wedding, but our absence had been louder than any speech. And for the first time in months, I felt peace. Not joy, not closure, just peace, like finally setting down a heavy box you didn't realize you were still carrying. The days following the wedding were strangely quiet, but the silence didn't mean peace. It meant waiting like the calm that settles over a town before the real storm rolls in. I didn't hear from Allison, not a word. But I started getting messages from extended family. Some were sympathetic. "I can't believe what she did to you," while others danced around the issue. "Maybe you two just need time." A few hinted that I had overreacted. And then the online whispers began. The florist posted a vague tweet about entitled clients who think they can cancel last minute and not pay a penalty. A wedding blog shared a blurry photo of Allison's makeshift venue with the caption, "What happens when things fall apart but you still say I do?" Someone even created a thread speculating about runaway brides and family drama, complete with screenshots of a now deleted post from one of Jeremy's friends complaining about the wedding turning into a dumpster fire. It spiraled faster than I could have imagined. Jeremy's parents, who had barely spoken to me before, reached out through email. A long-winded letter filled with passive-aggressive lines like, "We wish things had gone differently, and everyone makes mistakes in the name of love." I didn't respond. But the message was clear: the fallout had begun and no one knew how to clean it up. What stung more than anything, though, was that Carol and I had become strangers in our own story. We were the ones who had built the foundation, paid for it, nurtured it, supported it, and yet now we were being written out like footnotes. One morning, Carol handed me a manila envelope. "What's this?" I asked. She sighed. "Invoices, refunds, cancellations, everything you wrapped up." I opened it and scanned through credits from vendors' termination fees, partial refunds, broken contracts, thousands of dollars reduced to a stack of fine print and bolded totals. But that wasn't the part that hurt. It was the sticky note she'd added on top. It said, "You did everything right." I held on to that note like it was a lifeline. Because the world was trying to convince me otherwise, that I had overstepped, acted out of ego, ruined something beautiful. But I knew the truth. I didn't ruin anything. I simply stopped pretending, stopped playing the role of the ever-giving father who accepts silence and betrayal as the cost of love. And in that decision, I found something far more valuable than reconciliation. I found dignity. Weeks passed. I didn't reach out to Allison, not because I didn't think about her, I did. Every morning, every night, in the quiet moments between tasks, her face would float into my mind and the ache would settle in again like an old injury. But I had drawn my line. I had stood by it, and I wasn't going to chase someone who had clearly chosen to walk away. Then, one Thursday evening, while Carol was folding laundry and I was flipping through channels with the volume low, my phone rang. It was Ben. "Allison's trying to reach you," he said. "No small talk, no preamble." I sat up. "Why now?" "She's not doing great. Things with Jeremy aren't what she expected." I said nothing. Ben sighed. "She told me she made a mistake, that she thought cutting ties would give her clarity. Instead, it gave her an emptiness she can't shake." My chest tightened, not with satisfaction, but with grief. "She asked me if you'd take her call." Ben continued, "She doesn't want to send a message. She wants to hear your voice." I paused. I'm not ready to forgive her. She's not asking for that yet. She's just asking to speak. I didn't give him an answer. But later that night, as I stood in the garage staring at an old bicycle I once fixed up for her when she was 10, I remembered something. That summer, she'd crashed it on the sidewalk, scraped both knees, and came running into the house sobbing. I'd knelt down, cleaned her wounds, and she asked, "Am I still brave even though I cried?" I told her, yes, bravery isn't about not crying. It's about standing up again when you do. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, as sunlight spilled across the porch, I picked up my phone and dialed her number. It rang once, twice, then, "Hello," her voice fragile. "Hi, Allison," I said, my voice steady. "It's Dad." There was silence, a small breath, then a tremble. "I'm sorry," she said. "I thought I knew who I was. I thought I didn't need anyone." I let her words hang in the air. "You don't have to explain everything now," I replied. "Just tell me one truth." "I miss you," she whispered. And in that moment, the scar didn't disappear, but it softened. Forgiveness wasn't immediate. Trust wouldn't be rebuilt in a day. But a bridge had been placed across the canyon, not complete, not sturdy, but a beginning. I don't know what comes next, but for the first time in a long time, I was willing to find out. Because sometimes love doesn't come back wrapped in apologies or grand gestures. Sometimes it comes back as a voice on the other end of the line, tired, scared, but finally ready to come home.